everyone. We are here at Elm Grove Cemetery filming our October episode of Librarians Learn. We have all of our librarians and we have a special guest. This is Courtney.
Hi, I'm Courtney McInville. I am the owner of Seaside Shadows Haunted History Tours in Mystic, Connecticut, and Elm Grove Cemetery, where we are, is one of our featured stops.
So we are going to learn about some ghosts today.
So what is appropriate etiquette when visiting a cemetery?
So the best thing you want to do when visiting a cemetery is, just keep respect in your heart. So when you conduct yourself with that in mind, there's some things you might innately do. You might find yourself speaking quietly, not loudly. You're not going to have a party in here. You can, of course, still sit and talk with them, plant flowers. Those things are welcome. You're highly discouraged from bringing things that can blow around the graveyard and cause litter. You also want to make sure that when you're walking and driving around, you stay on the carriage and footpaths. But if you need to get to someone, they are not going to be upset. They are not going to haunt you if you step on them. They actually built cemeteries knowing that that was a big possibility. And please, no gravestone rubbings. They're very, very damaging to the stones. If you even touch some of these stones, they can crack in half. The letters can be completely illegible, some of the engraving falling off. So we actually highly discourage everyone from touching any of the stones. Get up close and take pictures, but leave the stones be for future generations.
So can you tell us a little bit about, funeral practices and how they've changed over time?
Sure. So a really great place to talk about extravagant 19th century funerals would probably be with the Mallory family, which is where we're standing right now. The Mallorys who built the Mallory shipyard that we know as Mystic Seaport. We are looking at perhaps one of the most prominent families in Mystic history. So when we talk about burials and really showing off, this is a great way to see that. They actually have a really beautiful message here, though. The Mallorys are buried in a circle. They're choosing to show this as the connectedness of the afterlife to this life, their connectedness to each other, the eternity that a circle represents is really quite a lovely symbolism when they picked their family burial. Well, they would pick these really extravagant graves based on a lot of things. Position in the community, money that you had, and the taller the stone, the more important that person was. The tabletops also showed you that they were almost kind of something of royalty. It's a big transition from just quaint little gravings on colonial stones with faces that are angels or death's head, just showing that these people are meant to be remembered forever. And that leads people to spiritualism after that. So you can't be forgotten, right? You can't. So you have this whole funeral, but how do you ensure that the legacy lives on? Well, you have to talk to the dead to ensure that. And that's where spiritualism comes into play. All of these folks believed that a soul lives separately from the body after death. They believed so much so that they believed each grave was in fact a literal doorway for the soul to go between worlds. And that way the soul could go back and forth and communicate. So when Queen Victoria loses Prince Albert many years ago, she goes into a deep, deep mourning. And she starts the practices of wearing all black and the black crepe and the things like this. And she starts holding seances in her home. So then that, of course, translates across the pond here. We look to our leaders. What are they doing when they go into mourning? The Lincolns lose their son. They start wearing all black, start conducting seances in the home. Seances in the White House? There's mediums going? What are they doing? Well, they are quite literally communicating with the dead. And in fact, the Lincolns had a medium named Nettie who came from Connecticut and resided at the White House to conduct seances on demand. This movement also starts with the Fox sisters who start kind of the Ouija board process. So mediumship becomes a way to really connect with the dead, and it becomes common practice. And we see people of importance. We look to Hartford and we think of Mark Twain, Harriet Beecher Stowe, and we think they would never, but they absolutely would. Harriet Beecher Stowe and her sister Isabella Beecher Hooker would hold seances in Hartford a lot and invite Samuel Clemens, that we know now as Mark Twain. He was against this, of course, and said that he believed in no such thing But then he continued to document later that he couldn't explain some of the things he witnessed during those seances. So communicating with spirit was far from taboo. It was commonplace. And the most prominent people you can think of were holding these seances. So that way, after these extravagant funerals, you were never fully saying goodbye. You were still keeping them with you in constant communication.
Do you think you need a seance to communicate with those that have passed?
That's a great question. So seances are theatrical, but so were the Victorian folks. When we talk about wearing those dresses, covering their mirrors with cloths, everything was dramatic. So that's their way of translating, communicating with the dead. It had to be fancy. I don't feel it has to be fancy. I, in fact, am a practicing medium, and I have never conducted a seance per se. I do like to light some candles, some incense. I do like to set my intentions before I do a reading and have some quiet meditative time. But I have never felt that I had to hold hands in a circle and cover the windows in black and tip tables to do it. But I do think that there's something fun about the whole imagery, to be sure.
Want to learn more? Join us through Zoom on November 2nd at 6:30 p.m. for a presentation by Courtney McInville-Riordan on her new book, Haunted Mystic. When she isn't teaching librarians, she is a licensed tour guide, published author, and an actual descendant of accused witches. Courtney has written 3 books for Arcadia Publishing and the History Press, including Haunted Mystic, Revolutionary War Ghosts of Connecticut, and Civil War Ghosts of Connecticut. She has also been featured as a historian and medium on Travel Channel's Portals to Hell and as a medium on Travel Channel's Ghost Adventures. Register for her presentation on the library's website, grotonpl.org.